All right. Okay. So yeah, go ahead and sign in on the chat. And what I'll do is I'll do some quick introductions. What I normally do is pick people out of the lineup who I haven't seen on previous calls and have them give a quick introduction to who they are and what organization they're with. So I'll go ahead and start off, just to let you know that you are on the Broadband Hui call. This is a weekly call that we've started 17 weeks ago. If that doesn't sound familiar to you, you're probably on the wrong Zoom call. But nevertheless, I am welcoming everybody to participate in what we basically are convening is stakeholders that are critical to understanding the broadband picture here in Hawaii. And of course, we started off doing this to kind of help address what is the pandemic has shown a spotlight on, which is the fact that there's a lot of people that aren't connected, and how can we help to bridge that gap. And then we are also looking at for the wider audience, just understanding what's the broadband picture look like, because there's no one silver bullet that's going to help everybody get connected. And so there's short-term needs, there's mid-term objectives and longer-term objectives, and I'll talk a little bit about one of the long-term objectives that I'm working on. So that's kind of the purpose of the call. Again, my name is Bert Lum. I'm the strategy officer for broadband, resident here in the state government in the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism. So just as a quick administrative note, if you can mute your mic, that would be good. That way we can minimize the background noise. And I'll go ahead and pick some people out who I have not seen before. Rick, you're going to be first up and do a quick intro.
Okay, I just unmuted, so I well, hi guys. I'm Rick Sujimura. I'm representing T-Mobile this morning in this meeting. I've got multiple clients across this issue, but for this call, it's T-Mobile.
Thanks, Rick. Matt, welcome.
Thanks so much, Bert. So yeah, I'm here representing my role on Lanakila Pacific, and as well we've got Lori Lau and Darren Lee. I'm to represent the Meals on Wheels program within Lanakila Pacific, and Darren is the IT lead at Lanakila. So look forward. Thanks everybody for having us.
Thanks, Matt. Hey, Katie, good to see you.
Hello, good to see you too. It's been a while. I'm with Code.org. I do government affairs for a region of the United States. And basically we focus on computer science education, but we've also realized that broadband is such a critical issue for students right now and always. So it's something I'm interested in learning about and helping to support. And thanks for having me on the call.
Yeah, and I just want to add that Katie was heavily involved with our legislation that established computer science in schools, and so there was I think a bill passed a couple years ago for CS in education, and Katie was involved with that, and Shane Asselstein, who's somewhere on the call, was also involved with that. So appreciate that. Oh, hey, there's Shane. Shane's actually got to leave, I think, in half an hour, so I'm going to have him say a few words shortly after we get through the introduction. Let's see. I have. Hey, John, is this the first time you're actually on the call?
Yeah, this is the first time. Thanks for having me, Bert. John Chin. I'm with the governor's office, and looking forward to understanding more about broadband and some of the issues, and see where we can plug in and help. Thanks.
Sounds good. So John every so often sends me emails about asking me about 5G. So I figured I better have him on the call so you can ask all the smart people that are on this call about 5G. Now, again, I don't know if anybody's coming in late. Go ahead and sign in on the chat, who you are and where you're from. Really appreciate that. And I guess what but Darren Lee and El Lau. I mean, are you guys both with Lanakila? So I'll start with Darren.
Yeah, good morning. I am the IT manager for Lanakila Pacific. Support Lori Lau, who is our director of Meals on Wheels. I was made aware of this group by Matt, who's on our board. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to hearing the dialogue here.
Okay, sounds good. Laurie, you want to do a quick intro?
Hi, everyone. I'm Lori Lau, the Director of Meals on Wheels for Lanakila Pacific. And again, excited to be part of the conversation for an upcoming project that we have. So thank you.
Sounds good. You know, I think we co-opted their Meals on Wheels and we have a project called Wi-Fi on Wheels. So anyway, we'll talk about that later. So Bobby Uehara.
Hi there. Thanks for having me. Work for Hawaiian Electric on the business development, kind of attending on behalf of Christian Whitney, who does pole infrastructure enterprise, but we're in the same team. But glad to be on the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, great. So you're here to kind of keep Rodney honest, right?
So our department, business development, we're always looking for new products and services where we can assist our customers, obviously in the energy space, among other things, looking for new ideas and mainly helping our customers.
Sounds good. I'm going to save Rodney for a little later on. He's going to give us a presentation, and I'm really looking forward to that. Let's see, who else do I not recognize? I think anybody else new that I think I recognize everybody else. Who did I miss? Anybody new that I missed? Okay, so I think everybody else is a regular on the call, and just for the new folks, we have a good representation of all the carriers. So Hawaiian Telcom is on the call, Charter is on the call, and we also have the wireless folks from Verizon and AT&T and T-Mobile. So and that's kind of why I wanted to have Matt a little later on kind of give us some of the challenges they're facing, because a lot of it is about connectivity and how do we address some of this last mile or first mile connections. But first off, I wanted to give Shane a chance to share with us a little bit about some of the going back to school challenges that are being faced. And again, Shane is just speaking from his complex area. And later on this evening, I'm going to have Senate President Ron Kochi and Paul Dina on the radio talking about the complex area on Kauai. Shane is Pro City Waipahu, and as all the students go back to school, there are kind of maybe a blended approach. Everybody's kind of looking at what best serves their complex, and I wanted Shane to just share a little bit about what they're trying to do in Pro City Waipahu and what some of the challenges in terms of connectivity might be. So Shane, go ahead.
Hi, thanks, Bert. Yeah, so Bert called me this morning to make sure I was going to come on today. I've been on and off. Sorry, I've missed you guys sometimes, but there's been other meetings and trainings that I'm trying to run. Like today, I'm running a CS training for middle school at the same time as this. So my partner is actually training this section now. I'm going to go back and do my section. But as far as Pro City Waipahu goes, we've had some, we were really fortunate.
Hold on, who's making noise here?
I'm not sure. I can't see any boxes lighting up. So. All right. So, so Pro City Waipahu has been very fortunate in the fact that not to call any one carrier out, but we've got through the Department of Education, we were able to get 1,200 MiFis into our complex area, and so that has been part of the solution. We've got I want to say 700 from Verizon and 500 from AT&T. And so what we've been working on with the devices the DOE is providing as well, coordinating those for the students at first summer school, but now we're starting to transition towards opening of school, which of those kids will require access. So of course, many of our schools know their current K-5, but their sixth graders are leaving to the next school, and then they don't know their incoming kindergarten. So we're trying to get those lists of who has access and who doesn't. Because we are releasing those MiFis to families, we're able to reach more students with the fact that we're offering one per family. So multiple kids in a family could get onto the same MiFi and still provide, do their distance learning. We do most of our schools are using some kind of a blended model. So that of course would be the face-to-face as well as distance learning, which is made up of the asynchronous, synchronous learning styles. Schools are, like I said, principals are working towards that. I'll be running trainings starting on the 29th. I'll be running basically 14 straight days of training for distance learning for our complex area and for the 800 teachers in our complex area to get them prepared, not just for using tools like Google Classroom, but also the best practices and philosophies of getting kids connected in a distance learning environment. What does synchronous learning look like? What does asynchronous learning look like? Just so that we are prepared for best and worst case scenarios. So those are the kinds of things that we're doing. We've got an influx of 1,500 devices, mix of Chromebooks and iPads. And we have another batch coming in by the 31st of another batch of devices to be connected. And almost all of our schools right now are working on a take-home policy in which the students would be assigned a laptop and they would keep that laptop back when they go back and forth to schools.
So Shane, I guess one of my questions is, you're distributing MiFi. Is the assumption that everybody will be able to connect if they were given a MiFi unit?
Yes, yeah. So these MiFi units are, the program is, the plan is actually covered for the full year till May 27th of 2021.
And then as far as the distance learning and sort of the digital literacy part, is that kind of in your your kuleana?
Yeah, so that would anything that plugs in, has a circuit, or has anything digital connected to it probably comes across my desk at some point. So yeah.
Hi Shane.
Yeah, I was kind of curious, like, oh, go ahead, Sherry.
Yeah, hi, this is Sherry from Hay. When you were speaking about those numbers, was that for the whole state or was that just your complex?
Just for our complex.
Oh, I see. And the training you're doing is just for your complex, is that correct?
The trainings I'm doing are just for my complex, yes. Yeah.
I got it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
not that we're opposed to visitors coming.
That was kind of a lead into my question, which is, is there some uniformity across the DOE? I know Shane, you do excellent training, but how does that get transferred to other complex areas?
Well, there is a project in the works from the Department of Education, and I'm part of that as well, to provide some type of training similar to the one they just produced that was Blackboard, for Blackboard specific, the 7 modules. So we are producing something like that for distance learning for general ed teachers and for all teachers actually, but more generalized and not specific on any one tool, like for example, Blackboard. So that'll be released shortly as well. We're currently working on that right now. So I'm actually working on my complex one as well as the state level one.
Okay. Well, you guys, Pro City Waipahu, sounds like, there's, the situation where you have no connection or no hardware is addressed. So there's not going to be any kind of gap with a family that doesn't have a connection or any kind of hardware.
Right. We'll end up having more accurate numbers. The principals will be taking more survey data as they get all of the registrations done for the school year. So then we'll even have a more accurate number than we have now. So
sounds good. So Shane, I think having you on the complex area is probably testament to the fact that you guys are able to get 100% of families online. So that's a great job.
Do the best we can. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, good job, Shane. Any other questions for Shane? So with that, I wanted to, we don't have Brooke on the call this week. He took a little break, so we'll have him back on next week, and maybe we can talk to him about some of the other complexes and some of the challenges that they may be facing, and whether or not there's solutions that we could bring to the table. So again, I want to thank Shane for joining us. And the next topic, I talked about this before, and I want to encourage you. I'll just do a quick update on the Aina Aloha. And so Aina Aloha is a initiative that is taking suggestions from the community, and there are a variety of different proposals. Well, actually, let me back up. There's a variety of different sectors of the community that they're looking at, and Christine Sakura and myself are heading up the sector on the tech industry and infrastructure. And what we're looking for are proposals that could address either, let's say, funding opportunity or maybe policy recommendations. So Aina Aloha is conducting this week kind of a review of some of the proposals that are already in place. And you can go to AinaAloha futures.com and check out the website and go ahead and, if you have a proposal in mind, to fill that out and submit that. And if it's related to technology, select the technology industry and infrastructure sector. And we will actually discuss that this coming Thursday, which is at 6 o'clock. So there's a web link that you can click on. It's pretty much open and inclusive to everybody. So you can click on that, and we will go through the process of sharing some of those proposals and doing some review of those proposals. You can actually go and look at what is currently being populated in terms of current proposals. If you go to it's AinaAloha.community. Let me back up. Maybe it's AinaAloha.consider.it. Consider it, and I should put it up on the chat so that you can check it out. But I would highly encourage you to go and participate. And of course, we'll be talking about that on Thursday at 6 p.m. So again, I want to encourage everybody to go ahead and do that. And what I did do, I just add all the projects that came out of the Broadband Hui. I reached out to a number of the folks that actually submitted those projects and encouraged them to submit a proposal, just so that we can get it kind of on record. And whether it gets funded or whether it goes forward, I think a lot of you have been very successful at initiating, the steps to bring it to fruition. So I congratulate you on a lot of the efforts that you've already put forward. But if you want to continue to have discussion and eyes and perhaps even funders look at your proposals, I would highly encourage going in and participating in Aina Aloha. So I know a number of you have submitted proposals, so I'm thankful for that. And again, Thursday is going to be the Zoom call at 6 o'clock. So that's Aina Aloha. Any questions on Aina Aloha? All right. Okay. So next up, I wanted to. Okay. So I'm spending a little bit of time talking about this because this is one of my projects that I think is important for the state of Hawaii, important for us to kind of rally behind. And I haven't had the opportunity to really talk about this over the course of the Broadband Hui. And I wanted to share it with you so that you can start to, think about it, explore about it, ask me questions about it. But, I've mentioned it briefly. It's the cable landing project that I'm working on. And this cable landing project is to connect the 4 major islands with cable landing infrastructure. And this is for Kauai, Oahu, Maui, and the Big Island. And this infrastructure, in essence, provides easier access for trans-Pacific fiber optics as well as inter-island fiber to land on those islands. And right now, we are in jeopardy of not having trans-Pacific fiber land here. So a lot of the trans-Pacific systems that are being put in place between primarily Asia and the United States, the continent, bypass Hawaii. And so part of the challenge is that, it's a good 2-year window for them to actually go through the process of landing in Hawaii. And if we are able to build this infrastructure beforehand and attract them and help lower the barrier, that would ensure more connectivity from the trans-Pacific fiber systems that are going across the ocean. And it's important. You might ask yourself, why should we care? It's really important because that is the primary mechanism by which we get connected to the rest of the world. So internet service to Hawaii really starts with the trans-Pacific fiber optic cables. And that's something that, we are working on to establish. And we are going after some federal funds to do this. So we're working on putting together a proposal for EDA funding. EDA is the Economic Development Administration funding for this project. So I mentioned trans-Pacific fiber, but connectivity to the neighbor islands also enables more inter-island fiber. And this inter-island fiber, we're in also a kind of I guess it's it's sensitive, it's fragile, and folks on Kauai know this, and they can speak firsthand about the cable outage that took place in October of 2019 that basically took the entire island down. And it's due to the fact that there's only 2 systems. Both are 25 years old, and it's already reached its limit of operation. And so those are in sort of jeopardy. They're fragile. And then the third system is Sandwich Isles. And Sandwich Isles is currently going through a bankruptcy proceeding. So, there's some instability with the inter-island options. And so landing on the neighbor islands with this infrastructure would also help to ensure that we have a more robust connectivity solution for connecting all the islands. So anyway, that's the project that I'm working on, and I wanted to share that with you also, that at least you have an idea as to the scope of projects that impact broadband. And what I try to explain to people is that Hawaii has to be connected. I think this pandemic has really brought to light the fact that it's a combination of a lot of connecting the dots, and connecting the dots from submarine fiber cable all the way to rural connectivity and the last mile. So it's all connected. And if we don't ensure sort of the connection to the rest of the world, then as much as you have connectivity on island, it's problematic if you can't get off the island. So that's kind of the picture that I'm trying to paint. And if you want to get more information, you can go to broadband.hawaii.gov. And if you click on the About tab on the menu, then you'll get a little bit more information about what I'm just describing. And again, the tactical detail of applying for an EDA grant is what I spend a lot of time working on, and that's in partnership with with the University of Hawaii and others. So wanted to update you on that, and I'll provide updates as we move along. But that's an important project, and we haven't had a chance to really talk too much about it. So I just wanted to share that, and of course, any questions, I'm happy to answer them. But again, we're aiming to get the application in by the end of this month. So we'll get it in, and then we'll see what the EDA response is, and then I'll keep you all posted as to how that process unfolds.
Bert, I have a question. How are we doing with
Sure.
fiber to the state with bandwidth, total aggregate bandwidth, and sort of a calendar of fibers that will be aging out over time?
So that's a good question. I have a slide, and I'm happy to send it to you, Mark, that lists all the current systems that are out there and the current ones that are more recent. So the two most recent fiber systems, one is called Hawaiki, and the other one is called CUS, SEA-US. And those are the two systems that are that came in within the last couple, 3 years. And there's a list of others that are older. One of the ones that helped Hawaii get connected to the rest of the world was Southern Cross. And Southern Cross came in around early 2000. So that's kind of reaching its 25-year limit. I've talked to the Southern Cross folks, and their next phase of their fiber system that they're running from Australia and New Zealand is actually bypassing Hawaii. So again, the project I'm working on is try to help to lower the barrier for the systems, the fiber optic system providers to consider landing here. But Mark, I can get you more information about what the current systems look like, and I have sort of theoretical limits on how much bandwidth they can contain.
On the slideshow, how do I add let you know that like
Allison, are you talking to everybody or just somebody in your office?
I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. Any other questions about this cable landing project?
Yeah, Bert, I got one.
I'm actually going to be discussing that on Thursday, during the Aina Aloha session.
Yeah, hi, Bert. This is Miller.
Go ahead.
For Sandwich Isles, you said they're facing bankruptcy now. What's the age of their system, and what do you have any idea what the economic formula is for them? They're obviously struggling with it, but are they facing to replacement of the cable within the next short time, which would make a buyout or reinvestment unlikely, or do they have a relatively new infrastructure that would probably support some form of that if the economics were right?
So that's a great question. So Sandwich Isles, is going through a bankruptcy proceeding, and it's a combination of Sandwich Isles, which actually gets the terrestrial connection to Hawaiian homelands, and then there's a inter-island fiber component, which is called Paniolo, and they're the two companies are tightly interwoven, and so and it's a complex kind of bankruptcy proceeding. But the long story short is that there are companies that are looking at acquiring those assets. And if anybody's interested, I can send you what's publicly accessible on the FCC website on that dissolution of assets. But again, it's kind of key to find out who is going to end up with those assets, because it has a direct impact on how services are delivered to Hawaiian homelands. So we're trying to keep a close eye on it, and once it's clear who that acquirer might be, I have already reached out to them and invited them to this Hui so that they can share what their plans are. And again, it's kind of key to kind of ensure that the delivery of service to Hawaiian homelands and the beneficiaries there, that the services would continue and hopefully even be improved, because currently right now Sandwich Isles is not upgrading any of their systems because of their situation. So whoever is the acquirer, I think they have now would have the obligation or the responsibility to maintain systems and improve systems.
Bert, do you know if the cable that was cut between Kauai and Oahu has been repaired? I haven't been able to get any information on that.
I don't know either, because from what I understand, service was brought back because they rerouted traffic on another system. I think they actually worked out something with Paniolo, but I don't think the old system was repaired. But I don't know for sure.
And Paniolo is the youngest of the three cables. I don't know how old it is, but it's the youngest of the three cables that do come to Kauai.
That's true. So Paniolo, once the settlement for the asset sale is concluded, it becomes it's a viable asset because it's relatively young. With the cable landing infrastructure that I'm doing, if another cable were to connect the neighbor islands, it would provide a route diversity. And what we're looking for is again, no single point of failure. So if there's route diversity, then you could potentially have loops that could service neighbor islands. And again, that's kind of key to providing resilient broadband service for rural communities.
Bert, I got a question. I was following the technical side of this for a while, and being non-technical, it was a little confusing to me. It seems like that the existing fiber cables, the submarine types to the mainland, were kind of running to their capacity, and then they came up with a technical way of increasing the amount of traffic going over the cables. My question, I guess, is, and I understand about the bypass in Hawaii that started a while back, but my question, I guess, is if you get these cables in and all that, how does that actually affect the user, like me? Do I get faster speed to the mainland, or is it being slowed down now because of the cable? And, what's the ramifications of having additional better service to the islands?
No, that's a great question, Bill. So a lot of people ask me that. So what's the connection between the cable landing and Trans-Pacific fiber cable coming to Hawaii and me in Hana, getting service? And it's, there's a lot of dots. There's a lot of dots that connect between, a submarine fiber cable to services, let's say in rural communities. And what, from a sort of macro scale, the more capacity that comes into Hawaii, the more, I think, price pressure is placed to lower prices. So if there's more options for the big providers to have options of getting capacity, then there's a good chance that there's going to be a lower price point that gets shared, I guess, with the community, at the commercial level or at the residential level. But again, it also depends on how companies like Hawaiian Telecom or Charter, ultimately get to your location. And so the economics, again, the more capacity we have, the better. And I think it ultimately ends up in better prices, at the user level. But also with the fact that one of the systems that would come in with this cable landing would be coming from South America. And so Hawaii, what I've been trying to promote is the idea that Hawaii is sort of an international hub for connectivity. And that includes access to Asia, Australia, New Zealand, as well as South America and the continental U.S. And that hub, and for Hawaii to be that hub, I think has great opportunity with some of the applications and the services that now, put us kind of square in the middle of the global economy. So again, it's very macro, but I think, for us to be competitive, we need to have this connectivity. Competition, and when I'm talking about competition, I'm talking about competition with other markets, right? And there's opportunity that arise because we have this international hub in Hawaii that creates more 21st century types of applications to be developed here, then I think we have a fighting chance. But if we were to be isolated, then I think we're going to be subject to more challenges. And I think the pandemic has sort of brought that to light. So, I've been advocating for this sort of robust broadband connectivity for Hawaii as a state, in this global market, which has trickle-down effect for all the connectivity in terms of rural communities. But one of the primary objectives is how do we, Hawaii, stay competitive in this global, in the middle of, and still being in the middle of the Pacific, and having connectivity is key to that.
Hey, Bert, can I add one thing? And that is, at one time there were more cables that stopped in Hawaii because of the technology. It was harder to cross the entire Pacific. And so oftentimes the state would be a natural place for cables to land. Because of increases in technology, we're seeing less of that, and more connections that happen in the more northern, between the Canada and Japan, China, rather than kind of going lower. And what that effectually does is it makes Hawaii almost stranded, in that there's less interest in going through the lower Pacific area, and instead the connections are looking more northern. And if you even look at a map of a lot of submarine cables that have been recently deployed, you'll see a lot of connections between those areas on the west side of the United States, of the mainland, and then on the right side you'll see the same thing, mainly between like New York and Europe. And so part of the idea in creating this neutral cable landing spot is to make Hawaii a more enticing place for people who are interested in crossing or laying fiber, to make Hawaii more competitive and a faster and easier place to not only provide interconnections with other submarine cables initially, but also then to make it a place where you want to cross after you have a consistent number of places there, because it just makes sense. You have more resiliency and more opportunity to provide, faster crossings across the Pacific. And so the investment that would be made in creating these, I like to think of them as like cable landing hotels, where they're not proprietary. Somebody can quickly land there easily, and then also have interconnection with other submarine cables, becomes a boon to Hawaii's economy, as well as connectivity and the resiliency that the state needs desperately between inter-islands, as demonstrated by the fiber cut that happened in Kauai. So it's hopefully a long-term path to success for the state, and it's great that Bert is trying to kind of track this money down from the federal government.
You're absolutely right, Christy. And for those that don't know, Christy is with Senator Schatz's office. You're absolutely right. There was a time when, from a technology standpoint, fiber cables needed to land in Hawaii just to get kind of repeated. The signal needed to be repeated. But the technology has advanced to the point where there has no need for that fiber to land in Hawaii. So a lot of the systems that are going across the Pacific from Asia to the U.S. continent is bypassing And I've talked to them. I talked to Google, and because they're doing the fiber system, Facebook is doing a fiber system, Amazon is doing a fiber system, and I asked them, what would compel them to land in Hawaii, and they said, a couple things. One is, they're looking for markets, right? They're wanting to land in places where there's markets. They don't consider Hawaii to be a big enough market. They also said that the time frame to actually go through the process of actually doing a landing, which would involve the whole permitting, surveys, doing the land acquisition, finding a partner, all of that, it takes time, and it's not worth their time and money to do that. So that's why there's kind of a trend, and it's a unfortunate trend where they're pretty much just all bypassing Hawaii. So what we, the state wants to do is to show them that we are committed to making Hawaii an attractive place to land. And it's like, think of it like, like building an airport, right? I mean, if you want planes to land, you got to have an airport. And similarly, harbor or a freeway. So you gotta help build the infrastructure. So the cable landing is that infrastructure that would lower that barrier for those cable systems to land here. And that's what we're aiming for. If the state, and I kind of look at the state government as being the ones that we want to have be a part of this broadband story. If the state can commit to that role, and again, I'm sort of, I tell people I'm holding space for broadband here at the state, and trying to be that point where if there's something happening with broadband, I can help sort of marshal that process. But one of the key projects that I think is going to help anchor broadband from a state narrative would be this cable landing project. So that's kind of, I feel the key importance that's driving what we do, and sort of I've taken it on as sort of a mission of mine. So Christy, I appreciate that, and I hope I sort of answered that question.
Could you, do you know how much the additional cost is to actually come to Hawaii versus going straight across?
Well, if I were to look at just rough numbers, I mean, we're looking at probably somewhere around, about $10 million. $10 million in time. So, if you look at each island, I mean, what we're trying to do is get federal support for doing this, and each island, roughly speaking, is around $10 million. And if you think of it in the grand scheme of things, that's not a whole lot of money. So, let's do it. What I look for, and I know I have representation here on this call from all the neighbor islands, as we put together the EDA grant proposal, what they're looking for is, support from the counties that this would help the economy on those respective items. So I've been putting the word out to the counterparts, in the counties, to look at getting that kind of support for this cable infrastructure. And again, Mark, I mean, to your point, it's federal money. It's actually designated, this EDA, Economic Development Administration money is designated to areas that have already been declared disaster. So it's a disaster area. And just FYI, I'm not going after CARES money. I'm actually going after disaster recovery money. And this disaster recovery money has already been identified for Big Island as well as Kauai and Maui, because of the respective disasters, the natural disasters that they've all encountered. So that's kind of the game plan. And again, in the grand scheme of things, it's not it's not a huge amount of money, but I think it's going to make a heck of a lot of difference for Hawaii. So anyway, that's me on my soapbox. Appreciate you guys giving me a chance to share that.
Hey Bert, I got a question.
Yeah.
So the landings that you're talking about, forgive my, ignorance of my question here, but you're talking about building like physical buildings and stuff on land, kind of like the satellite uplink in Kapolei, as opposed to something that would like a platform offshore someplace, right?
So that's a really good question. So what I'm looking for is infrastructure that gets the cable under the reef. So that's what we call horizontal bores. It goes under the reef and it pops up on land at a point which we refer to as the beach manhole. And then the beach manhole is just think of it as a concrete housing that's probably the size of a refrigerator that goes underground. And the only thing you see on the top of the ground is a manhole cover. And you see a lot of these manhole covers, walk around downtown, you see the manhole cover. The beach manhole is basically what that is. It's a concrete size, where the ocean fiber or the fiber that goes, under the ocean or through the ocean comes up on land and it transitions from ocean to terrestrial. So the beach manhole is that point where it transitions. And then from there, it's conduit to wherever the cable landing station is, okay? Now, we're not building the cable landing station because that's gonna be the fiber optic company. So the company that's gonna be doing the fiber optic system is a company that would build the cable landing station, because that's basically what they're, they're wanting to make sure that, that system is there to accommodate their fiber optics coming in from, let's say, South America. So what we are doing is, since we are building the infrastructure, our partnership with those submarine fiber systems providers is that the cable landing station would be carrier neutral, so that we would do multiple bores. And pardon me if I'm getting a little too, in the weeds here, but we would do multiple bores so that an additional fiber system could come through. And if that fiber system came through, they could go through the bore, they could go to the beach manhole, they could go through the conduit, and they could actually terminate their fiber at that cable landing station. So it's what we call carrier neutral open access, which is different from a private landing. So a lot of times when the private guys come, and this is Hawaii and CUS, they'll just build it for themselves. And they have no, they have no real pressure to build it for anybody else, right? So it's their investors. They want to build, it to connect to Hawaii. They do one bore, they do their own cable landing station, and it's a private arrangement. Hawaii benefits to some extent because the carriers will, buy capacity. But from a state standpoint, we don't really have a role to play in looking at the big picture, because we don't have a stake in that game. In the cable landing project that I'm talking about, we actually have a stake in the game. So so we can designate the cable landing station as a carrier neutral in partnership, with the fiber system provider. Anyway, that's another long answer to that question, but it was a great question. Anyway, I do want to kind of move on because we're 2 minutes into the time, but I'm really pleased with the questions and the interest. And again, I have some information on the website, and if you have any other questions, so feel free to ask me, and I'll share more about this project. But again, our target is to get this into the EDA by the end of this month, and then we'll kind of get an indication as to whether they are. I've gotten kind of preliminary indications that they're very interested in this project, so we need to kind of move that along and get more of a firmer commitment on that. So Anyway, that's the cable landing. Let's see. I did want to give a chance to let's see if anybody's on. May have to skip over this. I did invite folks from the Seating County of Honolulu to kind of give us an update about fiber along the rail, and Tony Velasco was going to kind of give us a quick update, but I don't see him on. I know he's in another meeting, so he might pop on later. But you know, as I mentioned earlier, you know, it's all about connecting the dots, and these dots are everything from submarine fiber cables to terrestrial backhaul to, you know, getting distribution into rural communities, into urban communities. It's things like wireless and small cell, you know. So it's a multitude of connections along the way, and this project Fiber Along the Rail is kind of an important one that I've been following because it goes along the obviously the main corridor of Honolulu. And wouldn't it be nice if we had you know, choke fiber in Hart? So I'm kind of pushing on that button. So with that, I want to kind of move on and give another interesting project, which I'm really happy to have Rod share this with you. So just to give you a little background, and Rod can get, you know, into more detail, but you know, as we have spoken about rural connectivity, and you know, Hawaiian Telecom has been very good about sharing some of the work that they're doing on Maui and getting to Hana. I am encouraging others to kind of share their work and what they are doing in terms of connecting rural communities.
Oh,
and
God.
you know, I've been seeing some emails about the work that Hawaiian Electric is doing, and their sister company on the Big Island, Hawaii Electric and Light Company, and they're doing something called the what I call the Hawaii Island Fiber Gap. So with that, I wanted to give Rod a chance to talk about that. Now, Rod, are you going to share your screen, or shall I share mine?
Yeah, I think you have to share, Bert. Mine is disabled for whatever reason. So if you don't mind,
I just enabled it. So if you wanna share it, you should be able to do it now.
Oh, got it.
But if you prefer, I mean, I'm happy to do it.
No, I can do it. Now it's showing up. Okay, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, if in case you don't know who I am, my name is Rodney Chong. I'm a director of telecommunications at Hawaiian Electric Company. And I might have mentioned this in a previous call, but the company in general has been going through a lot of organizational changes over the past year. And the telecom division is a new division that was formed less than a year ago. And just to give a brief explanation of what that means is that, you know, over the years, in years past, the telecom was always in a support role to facilitate the company's communication needs. And a lot of it is to communicate to our substations and assets on the grid. And, you know, obviously over the years and looking forward, the telecom needs for the company is, in my opinion, exponentially increasing as we try and get more renewable energy onto the grid, be able to have more connectivity at the extremes of our grid to the customer. So, you know, this is a trend that's happening actually in the electric utility industry, where now telecom is actually coupled with IT. So I am part of the IT group. I do report to the CIO. And we essentially, as a telecom division, are responsible and, you know, for the planning, engineering, and operation of all the telecom assets in the companies. So what I want to share today, Bert asked me to provide an update on this project, and my understanding, and this was shared to me from someone else in the company, but there was an update, I guess, given back in 2016 to the Broadband Council. So they provided me with that, and I updated it based on what has changed since then. So I wanted to give an update on this project. Okay, so if you're not familiar with this project, this started back in 2009, actually, but Hawaiian Electric Light broke this project up into four phases, and it was to essentially replace a portion or a good chunk of the what we call the 3400 transmission line. This is a line that was built in the 50s, and you know, for reasons of safety, and it was not reliable and so forth. You know, this project was needed, and as you can see from the map, you know, this is on the southern part of or running through the Volcano National Park, actually. And fortunately, you know, since 2016, a lot of progress has been made. There was a lot of permitting that was required. And as Bert mentioned, permitting it takes a while, right? So I'm happy to report, and I'll go into more details of this, that, you know, by the end of this year, 3 of the 4 phases will be completed. So, you know, what was the drivers for the project? I mean, it was to improve reliability. There's roughly about 5,500 customers that depend on this line. There were safety concerns. Again, this is an old line. It was built over terrain where it's not necessarily easily accessible, and there's deep cracks where the poles are located. So that was another driver. But as far as for this group, why this project was very interesting for the local industry stakeholders is that enables the fiber loop around the island to be closed, because this new pole line would be able to accommodate you know, carriers to attach fiber to close, I think, what they call the southern loop. And my understanding, as noted on the slide, back in 2013, there was an issue with the fiber in Waikoloa, caused a 20-hour telecom outage. So that was, you know, something that raised concern, and therefore there was a lot of stakeholders in the local comm industry that was pushing for this project. And, you know, when we finish phase 1 and 2 this year, my understanding is that, you know, that would be a significant milestone whereby the carriers would then be able to close the southern loop. There is a phase 3 that, you know, still got a ways to go, and I'll talk more about that, but my understanding the key components were phase 1 and 2. So the latest update is that, you know, earlier this year, HELCO and Hawaii Volcanoes National Park filed their respective environmental assessments. We got EA approval, and HELCO was able to obtain the special use permit needed to begin construction. And I think these right-of-way permits, I think, were another key component. We also even had to get DOT permits, as I recall. So fortunately, that was secured. A significant amount of construction took place this year. And, you know, during the September-October timeframe this year, we hope to have 3 of the 4 phases complete. And sorry for the typo there. In 2020, you should be able to enable the carriers to close the gap. Phase 3 will take longer due to land issues, permitting, and other approvals. But my understanding is that phase 1 and 2 were the key components here. At any time, please feel free to stop me if you have questions. But this is a more deeper dive into different phases on the map. So phase 1 currently is about halfway done, and they expect to finish this construction in later this summer, in September, October. Phase 2 was completed, fortunately. And phase 3, I at this point don't have an estimated date of completion. I personally view that this is going to be a number of years out. Based on discussions with Hawaii Volcano National Park, you know, they had a preference to redirect the route. We're in discussions with Kamehameha Schools Bishop State about this alternative route that you see here in red. You know, this is going to require much more permitting. It's going to require an EA, may require a habitat conservation plan with other permits. And because of the cost of the project, it will require Public Utilities Commission approval as well. So, you know, this is going to be a number of years out.
Rodney, we lost your screen share.
Oh, okay. Let's see here.
Are you still sharing? If
Let me
if
try
not,
sharing.
I can.
Is it showing now?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, sorry, I don't know what happened. Did you need me to back up, or did it stop sharing on phase 3?
Yeah, it stopped sharing on phase 3.
Okay. So what I just stated is written on the left side of the screen. But yeah, phase 3, in a nutshell, it's going to be a number of years out. Phase 4, this is the part that's right outside the park that runs to the residential area, but that was completed already as well. So I believe that was, but you know, let me go back to the first slide. So again, going back to this first slide to see the full scope, you know, like I said, by September, October, we hope to have phase 1, 2, and 4 completed. My understanding for purposes of the parties on this call that phase 1 and 2 was a key component that I understand they're very interested in. So, you know, I don't know the full background and history on this, but, you know, my understanding is some of the carriers and people on this phone have been involved in following this. But if you have any questions, I can try and answer them, or if I can't answer them, I can talk to the engineering team that has been working on this project.
Hey, Rodney, I did see a question from Sean about funding for this. How is this all being funded?
Yeah, so these portions that I shared with you, separate from phase 3, as an electric utility, any capital project that's over $2.5 million, we, you know, go to the PUC for approval. But essentially, you know, the main driver for this project was to replace the transmission line. So it is being funded by ratepayer, electric ratepayer funds. But my understanding is the phase 1, 2, and 4 on its own did not trigger a PUC approval. That's my understanding. So, but yeah, essentially it's being funded by our customers.
And Rodney, you know, what is phase 3 preventing from happening, and basically is connectivity, you know, like a continuous fiber optic route unable to be completed because phase 3 is not completed?
Yeah, so for the comm folks, and the carriers can speak up on this, but this is what I was told, is that right outside phase 2, perhaps in the phase 3 area, some of the carriers already have infrastructure there or fiber there. So, you know, what I was told is that phase 1 and 2 were the key components that they're waiting for, and others can tell me if I'm wrong, but you know, for us as an electric utility, phase 3 from the transmission line standpoint is now the weak link here until we can replace it. But as far as the ability for closing that fiber loop, my understanding is that phase 3 was not a critical piece, but you know, some of the carriers can speak up on that if that's not the case.
Well, you know, I have Ani on the call, and she's used to me calling her out just you know, spontaneously. So, Ani, if you're still on, do you have any comment from a Hawaiian Telecom perspective?
I was waiting for my moment to shine today, Bert. Thank you. I think that's absolutely accurate. We definitely are waiting for phase 1, phase 2 completion so we can go ahead and build out fiber. Phase 3, I'm not as certain about. I know we have some infrastructure closer to Volcano, but how far that extends between, you know, phase 3 and phase 2, or what that gap is between the two, I'm not 100% certain on. But if that's something this group is interested in, I can get some more clarity. But I know we have some infrastructure in place. I just don't know if we have it all the way to where that borderline is between phase 2 and phase 3.
Thanks, Ani, and thanks for being such a good sport.
My pleasure.
I know Charter's on the call too, so I wanted to give them a chance to chime in. I think that the question I'm trying to address is if communities were clamoring for solutions for the end user, is this project holding them up? Charter, I know Mayong, are you still on? Okay, well we'll kind of skip over that. I think again, what I'm trying to enlist is well, yeah, and I wanted to open it up to the wireless folks too. I mean, are you able to complete any of your plans with respect to what Hawaiian Electric just shared, or is the phase 3 completion an obstacle, I guess, in terms of completing your portion? So Mike Bagley, I know you're on the line, so you're one of my favorite people to call on. Well, maybe Mike left. Elizabeth, are you still on?
Yep, I'm here. I'm not aware of any AT&T projects in the area, but I can check.
Okay. So again, the reason I'm
Bert, this is Mike Yosua. I can also circle back with Mike Bagley on that.
Yeah, I think Mike had to run. And again, like I said, I appreciate everybody who's able to at least participate in the call. But yeah, what I wanted to arrive at is, I'm really happy that Hawaiian Electric, shares their plans, and I'm just kind of wanting to make sure that it kind of syncs up with the carrier's plans, and if there are obstacles, are the ways that we can help remove those, or if it doesn't make a difference, then great, you can continue with whatever plans you have for that area. Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Rod?
Bert.
Yeah.
Bert, if I can just, and I know Christian has participated this in the past, so I just wanted to mention real quickly that, Christian's group, Pole Infrastructure, is, still the point of contact for, any pole attachments. And, I'll just mention too that we're even looking at the possibility of leasing some of our dark fibers. So, I know she has done her own outreach, but I just wanted to throw that out there, that, she is still the point of contact for potential arrangements like that.
Right. Thanks. Appreciate that. And for the wireless carriers, as well as people on the call that are interested in 5G deployment, there's the public infrastructure, which, whether it's counties or even state, we have procedures, I guess, in place for pole attachments. And then Hawaiian Electric with Christian also has pole attachment. And so they are the ones that, are managing all the electric poles. And just a brief history, it used to be a joint pole arrangement between Hawaiian Electric and Hawaiian Telcom, but that has now reverted to a single ownership, which is Hawaiian Electric. So at least now we have a single point person that we can talk to about, pole attachment for Hawaiian Electric pole infrastructure. Okay. Again, appreciate everybody hanging in there. Matt, thanks for hanging in for the majority of the call. I want to give you an opportunity to share what your sort of challenges and if anybody can help with Lanakila Pacific.
Sure, great. Thank you so much, everybody. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. So yeah, thanks again for the opportunity. I'm representing Lanakila Lanakila as a board member, but we've got a couple of the great staff members on the line as well. So for those who don't know, Lanakila has been serving the community for 80 years. The Meals on Wheels program specifically provides over 2,800 Oahu residents with some form of a meal annually, and it's the largest island-wide here within Oahu. One of the things that's great about it, as well as its ability to kind of flexibly adapt to challenges throughout COVID. As different programs have had changes, they've been able to support everything from healthy mothers, healthy babies, to assisting Malama Meals recipients when that program is facing some challenges. So really a great organization to be a part of. In general, in terms of the group that it services, is the average homebound senior that gets meals is an 83-year-old Asian female living on $900 per month. So really a key kind of element of our kapuna that needs support. And one of the key parts of this program is the social interaction. So it's not just about food, it's actually the social interaction that they get through the individual who drops off the food doing a health check, to a program called Congregate Dining, which is a federally funded program to enable kapuna to get together and share a meal, be educated on health and some other items as well. Obviously, because of COVID, Congregate Dining and bringing a bunch of kapuna together into the same space is not a recommended element. And so we've been trying to figure out how do we best address kind of a post-COVID world, and how can we deliver the experiences to the kapuna that are necessary. So the program has existed for some time. It actually serves a large number of kapuna and had as much as 40,000 monthly. That funding still exists, but we're trying to figure out, again, a way to redeploy it. And while we've seen a lot of the kind of elderly support community adding programming delivered digitally, either through classes or other components, we feel like the gap, given our experience with kind of direct hands-on in-person engagements, is potentially helping to close that first mile or last mile as it pertains to the actual connectivity as well as the device enablement. So it's great that there's some cool programming, YouTubes that you can watch, but if you don't have internet connectivity and device connectivity, then it's not really a solution for those seniors, and it's not connecting them to the world. So we really feel that we can use our in-person boots on the ground experience to be able to make that more effective. So the idea is that we would be purchasing devices either in the form of tablets with direct cellular connectivity, or in some cases kind of voice-enabled video assistants that would need Wi-Fi connectivity, help get those set up and installed within the our target demographics homes or the environments in which they live, and then do kind of general literacy with them. So depending on where they start, helping them to learn from connectivity to basic usage moving forward. It is something that we're looking to apply and to try to leverage some of this funding that does exist to make so. So we would be purchasing those devices through Lanakila, as well as potentially paying for the service through a bulk contract for Lanakila. And the goal really in this audience is trying to see what is the best way for us to, or other ways to support this actual getting the kapuna connected, and what kind of delivery options exist. So again, one option certainly is to procure tablets that have direct cellular connectivity, and adding contracts that way. So we'll want to see what opportunities there are to streamline that process and include that. But we also feel like there are other classes of devices that may be more appropriate for these seniors. Except kind of the voice and video skills may address a lot of what they're needing and the skill set that they have, which would require more of a MiFi or Wi-Fi type solution. So I was wondering how we can partner with this audience for that connectivity, and then assuming we get that up and running and we've started to establish a good level of base connectivity for those seniors, potentially also engaging around telemedicine and other areas as we do this training and enablement with this population.
So Matt, I mean, do you have a good sense as to where all of your community are located?
So they're located within Oahu. I don't know if, Lori, if you're still on, if you had some observations on the location of the folks. So I might have lost Lori.
No, that's correct. So Lanakila Meals on Wheels, we are an island-wide provider. I think initially we may concentrate on some of the senior affordable properties, because there's sort of a concentration of seniors in the same area. We can kind of maximize our staff resources with all the seniors being at the same address, but we are an island-wide provider.
What I can suggest, Matt, is that there's three components. Just like we spoke with Shane about trying to connect students and student families, with the tools. There's three components. There's access. There's the digital hardware, and then there's the whole digital literacy piece. I'll give Curtis a chance. I'll introduce you to Curtis, because Curtis is the guy with the the pile of computers in his in his office there, and he's been working on getting those in the hands of people that need hardware. And so, Curtis, I don't know if you want to just kind of introduce yourself, say a few words.
Sure. So, Matt, my name is Curtis, obviously. I'm with the organization which is Hawaiian Hope, and we provide computers, refurbished computer equipment, to all kind of people, organizations, and such. We have a really low cost per device on the refurbishing. So we've been doing a lot of machines recently where it's a full computer system, keyboard, mouse, monitor, computer. Sometimes we can do all-in-one computers if we get those in as donations. But we're talking anywhere from like $50 to maybe like $100 per unit, just depending on what type of setup you're looking for. We deployed recently about 150 all-in-one computers, and they had touch screens. They've got Wi-Fi built in, camera built in. So it makes it really easy for a lot of people to navigate those. But yeah, I mean, last year we put 1,700 computers out the door, and so we've got thousands of machines that come in every year. So yeah, I'd love to talk with you, but I just tell you up front, we do not have or get really like tablets and what everybody refers to as the digital devices. But as far as regular computer equipment, yeah, we can do volumes.
Well, that's great. I think we've thought about how we migrate computer literacy, and certainly that's the kind of final stage as they have that capability. So I think that makes sense. We're trying to examine what those opportunities are. We've also had some devices donated by Amazon, so we do have a baseline of some things that we can work with as well. So cool, but that's great. We'll definitely follow up.
And I do want to make sure that you get in touch with Elizabeth, and she's with AT&T, Mike Bagley, who's with Verizon, and then I know we have T-Mobile on the line too, but I don't see them still on the line. But what I would do is, and I can.
Rick's on from T-Mobile.
Oh, Rick, yeah, Rick. So. And rather than spend time on this call, Mike, Matt, I'll send you their contact info, and if you want to reach out to them and see what a cellular option might be, they could help out. And then in terms of I think that's probably the easiest way to. I was going to suggest landline options as well, and of course Ani and from Hawaiian Telecom and Myung from Charter is also on the call. The other thing is I know Christina, and you mentioned, Matt, telehealth, and I think she's my telehealth champion. So I want to connect you folks. And Christina, what did you have in mind?
Yeah, just can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So very happy to hear this initiative. I think it's amazing the work that you all do. Our program, the Pacific Basin Telehealth Resource Center, Pbtrc, we're HRSA funded, and our mission is to advance telehealth. So our mission in the last few months has just exploded. So what we're trying to do now is really focus in on the most vulnerable populations, because telehealth is becoming a little bit more common day for the big health systems. And I actually do have someone just starting on staff that is focused specifically on how to outreach to service other services providing. We were looking at healthcare, service areas like skilled nursing facilities, home care, and all of that for the Kupuna population in particular. But you just gave me a whole different kind of perspective of partnering up with what you're doing, exactly what you're doing, where we could have our teams, as you're doing the literacy training, we could add a telehealth component and offer some support in that way. And some of the things that we're doing is even like language translation on instructions of how they connect up to their telehealth provider using Zoom or Doxy.me and things like that. So I would be very happy to join up on this initiative with you.
Awesome, great, yeah, thank you. We'll reach out and see how we can work together.
That's great, and of course, that's the whole purpose of this call, is to make connections that could perhaps move the needle on all of these initiatives. Whether it's distance learning, and then telehealth and telework. I mean, it's all connected. So I appreciate everybody's participation. Anything else for Matt? I think again, Matt, and then again, you guys are kind of leave it to you folks to figure what it is that you're going to do for the whole digital literacy, right? So especially with Kupuna, there's going to be a fair amount of introduction to the technology, and introduction in a way that gets them familiar and comfortable and and productive, I guess, with the technology. So that becomes another aspect I think that you need to really it's not about the technology, it's about how you use the technology. And if you do want to touch base with people like Shane is like a rock star when it comes to education and getting people, especially students, up to speed. Maybe some of that can get translated to Kupuna.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. There's definitely a long history of Lanakila really being able to do a lot of teaching and training with Kupuna as well as others. So I think we can take some of the great stuff from Shane as well as some of these other connections, and hopefully we can make a really successful program. So thank you everybody for your time.
Okay, thanks Matt. So I did want to kind of wind down the call with just a quick update on any mapping efforts and broadband data collection. I know Mel has been very excited about this, and we have the folks from Hawaii Green Growth and the Aloha Plus challenge dashboard. Mel, you wanna how's that effort going? I think you're still muted.
Your mic's not working.
Your mic's not working.
Is it plugged in?
Well, we can. Well, we can. Maybe I'll call on Megan. Hey, Megan, I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Hi. I personally don't have any updates on broadband mapping as of right now, but yeah, Hawaii Green Growth and the Aloha Plus dashboard is still very interested in working with you guys and getting some more mapping up on the dashboard. And I can link again in the chat box.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'll put a link in the chat box for the Aloha Plus dashboard right now.
So what I also wanted to sort of reemphasize, and I sent out an email to what I call the Hui mappers. We also want to encourage crowdsourcing, and there's tools that are available. BCCA is also on the call. They have the No Internet Service tool. The key is, how do we collectively kind of put programs together with your respective communities to crowdsource some of that data? And once we get that program kind of launched, and then we can get the data to the right sort of mappers, then we can actually start showing where some of the locations are that that, at least with no internet service, we can refer back to data that we collected. Mel, are you back on?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I had to reboot and come back in. So yeah, I think what we should do is just update everyone from last week. So I think we were discussing various forms of maps and including the RDOF map that Lisa Kim had talked about. So Bert and I had that as a takeaway. We revisited the maps and decided that it'd probably be worth doing our own form of no internet access map using the portal and tool that DCCA has. So that's kind of where we ended up. But what we do realize is it's going to take more of a grassroots community effort. So what I was thinking, Bert and the rest, is to get organized around that. For me, we've been working on Kauai with our distance learning pilot. So we've been actually working with all 15 schools on Kauai. As a result of that, as well as this Broadband Hui call, I've also reached out to Mike Dehilig, the managing director on Kauai, and he had gotten me in touch with the finance and IT person from Kauai of the county, and we actually had a call a month ago. So between the two, I think we can organize ourselves on Kauai to take a stab at trying to use the tool and see how that works. So I think it's going to be a multi-pronged and multi-organizational approach. So that's kind of what I'm suggesting. And then others that might have networks can certainly, I think, try form these types of experiments and pilots that we just can stay up.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. And I think, once we get the data, and again, it's, it's the program that gets the data. That's the crowdsourcing. That's the finesse that people like Mel are going to experiment with on Kauai, and then we can get it to, the Hawaii Green Growth folks, the Hawaii Data Collaborative folks, and others that can actually start putting it up. And while I got Arthur Buto on the call, I mean, he's the GIS guy here in the Office of Planning. So once we get the data, we can definitely start showing a little bit more with accuracy, where some of these no internet service spots are. So appreciate the help, Mel. Okay, with that, we're at 10:30, and again, I really appreciate everybody's participation in this call, all the great information that's being shared, and just the collaborative nature of everybody coming together and helping out, and ultimately trying to move the needle for broadband across the entire state of Hawaii. So I think I want to thank everybody and commend you for all being steadfast participants in the number 17 weekly call for the Broadband Hui. Now, I do want to pass something on. Ben Trevino, he has to leave, but he shared a note, and there's a meetup that's happening. They're looking at gathering some thoughts on policy. There's a website called pol.is, and you might go and check that out. But I would highly recommend for everybody who's on this call to download and save this chat, because there's like a ton of information on the chat. And me, I can only I cannot multitask. I can only do one thing at a time. So if I'm talking, I cannot look at the chat. But when I'm not talking, I do look at the chat, and there's like a ton of stuff there that I think if you were to explore some of those links and information, it's a very rich interaction that's happening on the chat. So check out Ben Trevino's announcement. Check out that meetup and what they've done. I guess it's, I think, a Code for Hawaii project, and he referred to something called the POL.is. And again, I did post the link to Aina Aloha. It's Aina Aloha Futures.consider.it. And so if you're able to join that, come up with a project, and even if you don't come up with a project, I mean, feel free to join us on Thursday at 6 p.m. and we'll be talking about technology and infrastructure. And again, I appreciate all of your participation. Senate President Ron Kochi and Kaz from Kauai, Paul Zena is going to be on the radio show later on tonight at 6:30 HBR1. Just a small plug for Hawaii Public Radio. And again, we will reconvene next week on July 22nd here, same time. And again, you guys all stay safe and you all stay awesome. Thanks a lot. Aloha.
Thanks, Bert.
Thanks, Bert.
You're more than welcome.